It's the 23rd of October and I'm Tom Glass and welcome to The Roast. Tonight, Scott Morrison has put his hand up to take on Australia's response to Ebola. And I'll tell you what, if he does cure Ebola, that'll be his second miracle and he'll be well on his way to sainthood. His first miracle was consistently defying the High Court and somehow getting away with it. Does he do it? Now, I'm not saying that Scott Morrison can walk on water, but that's only because it's an on-water matter and we're not allowed to discuss it. Here's something we can discuss, though. Mark Humphries with the headlines.
Great segue.
It was, wasn't it?
Fantastic.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I liked it.
The federal government has decided to reduce the renewable energy target, keeping their election promise to destroy every polar bear. The government originally agreed that renewable energy would account for 20% of Australia's power by 2020. However, we're at risk of fulfilling more than 20% of Australia's power needs with renewable energy, so the government wants to reduce the target to make sure we don't go overboard and accidentally save the planet. Industry Minister Ian McFarlane thinks this proposal will go down well with the renewable energy sector.
It is a plan which will provide the confidence to the renewable energy sector.
You see, the renewable energy sector was lacking confidence as it didn't know whether there would be cuts. Fortunately, they've now got the reassuring confidence that they have been cut. But just excuse me for a moment. Oh my God, I've been cut! And knowing that means my confidence is sky high. And I'm not the only one feeling confident.
Lane Crockett, Executive General Manager, Pacific Hydro Australia, said his company would lose another $1 billion under the government proposal.
A policy that could lose money and damage the environment? I think we're onto a winner. Labor Party politicians have expressed outrage over the Greens' use of an image of Gough Whitlam, which was uploaded to Facebook. As you can see, the image could give the impression that Whitlam was a member of the Greens. But of course, Gough Whitlam actually got things done, so clearly he wasn't a part of the Greens. Labor leader Bill Shorten described the image as offensive, while Anthony Albanese labelled it as cheap and opportunistic, proving that Labor is a very strong opposition when it comes to Facebook photos. The Palm United Party, the fart in the elevator of Australian politics, has selected its candidate for the Queensland seat of Govan. I'm going to guess it's either a former footballer, a golden retriever or a toaster.
Gold Coast security company boss Adam Marcinkovsky has been endorsed by the Palm United Party for the seat of Govan.
Oh, okay. This is the Palm United Party, so what's the ridiculous part of this story?
Security company boss Adam Marcinkovsky beats Clive Palmer's wife for Govan pre-selection.
Jesus, who you got to screw around here to get ahead in the Palm United Party? Mrs. Palmer, seen here on Clive's cheapest Titanic replica, will have to stay in her current job of saying, "Yeah, that could work, honey." A spokesman for Mr. Palmer said the executive made a decision based on interviews and experience, adding, "This is how all parties should operate," a phrase never before uttered about the Palm United Party. Although Mrs. Palmer was not found to be a suitable representative, she can take some comfort that her husband isn't suitable either. And finally, a Melbourne ultramarathon swimmer has set the record for the longest open water swim by swimming for 42 hours and 30 minutes. The 29-year-old also earns the unofficial record, most times someone has used the ocean as a toilet. For The Roast, I'm Mark Humphries.
Thank you, Mark. You know, I hold that same record for both the bath and my pants. Well, Scott Morrison, seen here wondering exactly how many times he has to call something an operation before the military will give him a gun, has done the seemingly impossible for the immigration minister, discovered a whole new way to ruin everyone's day.
Morrison has employed a rarely used clause in the Migration Act that allows the minister to issue a conclusive certificate blocking permanent protection.
It's funny because increasingly these days the rarely used clause in the Migration Act is the make yourself at home one. But this is the other one, which allows Morrison to block permanent protection on the grounds of national interest. But since it's rarely used, it must be in one of those break-in-case of emergency cabinets behind his desk.
Guardian Australia understands at least 3 conclusive certificates have been issued.
Oh, apparently there's been a whole bunch of emergencies, so you know Morrison's getting his hand all cut and bloody constantly reaching into that broken cabinet. And since Australia's national interest is usually just beating other countries at games of ball, I can't wait to hear Morrison's reason for doing this.
The minister is not obliged to reveal the reasons of national interest for the decision.
I expect someone's going to appeal that to the Refugee Review Tribunal.
His decision cannot be appealed at the Refugee Review Tribunal.
Oh, right. So Scott Morrison is technically playing by the rules, but he's deliberately misinterpreting the spirit of them for his own purposes. He's
technically correct man.
By day, he's just an immigration minister leaping through legal loopholes with a single signature. But by night, he's being accused of crimes against humanity.
Andrew Wilkie has written to the International Criminal Court seeking to prosecute the Abbott government for crimes against humanity.
He's not the hero Australia deserves, but he's the one we're stuck with. We'll be right back.
Have you ever seen Scott Morrison and Technically Correct Man in the same room together? No? Well, if you do, Andrew Wilkie would love to hear about it at the Roast TV or hashtag RoastTV.
But asylum seekers isn't the only issue where Scott Morrison's doing some really good work. He's also really helping out in other government portfolios, especially in combating Ebola.
One minister told AM the immigration minister's approach is annoying everyone on the National Security Committee because he's not across all the facts on Ebola.
Oh, but that's okay. Ignoring facts of a problem's worked out pretty well for Morrison in the past, and it's not as if he's stopped being the humble and restrained guy that we all know and know.
Another senior coalition source said Mr. Morrison's behaviour was out of control and his ego was getting in the way of his judgment.
Ooh, out of control. So it turns out Morrison's ego is the only thing harder to contain than Ebola. But this is probably just an isolated incident, right?
In recent weeks, 2 ministers have publicly pushed back on incursions into their portfolios.
2?
Scott Morrison is like Mark Holden's fan mail reader. He's got nothing to do. And since he's stopped the boats, his head has grown bigger than the list of UN complaints against him.
Yeah.
In fact, my source at Parliament says that Tony Abbott thinks he's an arrogant, meddling asshole.
Ooh, who's your source?
My flip book.
That's not a real source name.
Aren't I?
No.
Well, let's listen to the little guy anyway. Flaunt international law, send asylum seekers back to a war zone, fight the High Court. Done, done, and definitely done. God, finished already and it's only 9:13. What else can I do? How are we gonna stop Ebola? Put Ebola in detention! This isn't your department. How are we gonna pass this budget? Put poor people in detention! Thanks, but Climate change? Detention. ISIS? Detention. Bill Shorten? Detention. Scott, please, we've been listening to you for 7 hours. Hands up who's fulfilled a core election promise here? Not you, Hockey. You're welcome, friends. The end. And that's why Scott Morrison had to buy a whole new cupboard of hats.
Okay, thank you. So by the sounds of it, Scott's the most confident cat in government. Oh yeah, he is taking names and shipping those names off to an island.
Who's the big old swinging dick that's giving refugees the flick?
Scott!
You're damn right. He's the minister for immigration but wants to run the entire nation.
Scott!
Right on. They say this cat Scott's a bad mother.
Shut your mouth.
Because of the media blackout?
Scott!
He's a high court fighting man, and no one understands him, but apparently that doesn't matter because he's just going to go ahead and do it anyway.
Scott Morrison.
You will not be resettled in Australia.
Scott!
Oh man, when you look at it like that, Scott Morrison seems like a pretty cool dude. Just don't cross him though, because if you do something he's not down with, he is one bad mother...
Shut your mouth.
But he is.
Shut it.
All right, I will. Good night.
Good night.
Oh yeah.